Hello and welcome to the top 8 coverage of the last World Magic Cup qualifiers for 2016 here in the Philippines. My name is Miguel Utleg.
And I'm Jerrymel.
This is the quarterfinals. We're watching Angelo Evangelio playing blue-green Infect, facing up against Jerrymel Lubin Guevarra playing a red-white Nahiri lockdown deck.
Alright, so this Nahiri deck is sort of similar to the more famous Jeskai Nahiri deck, where it's basically Nahiri trying to get an Emrakul and then trying to ultimate for Emrakul for the win. Difference with this deck though is it plays land destruction and Blood Moon's main deck to lock down the opponent and to protect the Nahiri. So yeah, it's similar win conditions. It just takes a different path on going there, and of course he's playing against this sort of a standard Infect deck from Michael.
Okay, so Michael starts off on the play and he plays Wooded Foothills, fetching for a forest. He goes down to 19 and he casts a Noble Hierarch.
Yep, and that Noble Hierarch, your standard Infect play because you want that turn 1 so that you could cast something like a Blighted Agent on turn 2 with mana up to protect it and swing in for possibly the win on turn 3.
Yep, so he ships the turn to Jerrymel.
Right, so Lockdown deck does pack a lot of hate main deck. One thing he could be doing here is immediately casting something to take care of that Noble Hierarch, but he doesn't.
Yep, he just plays his Arid Mesa and passes for the turn. Here comes down an Inkmote Nexus for Michael. Uses up all his available mana, to cast a Viridian Corruptor.
Yep, and the Viridian Corruptor is your 2/2 Infect creature, which is one of your win conditions. But well, it's bigger than the other two, but it's not the best play in the sense that because you do tap out all your mana on that turn. Because like I mentioned earlier, you normally want to keep mana up to make sure you're able to protect that creature. Because Infect does have a lot of cards that either give their creature hexproof or make them bigger, so that they can survive lightning bolt. He could possibly be thinking that Jerrymel here just has something like lightning helix or lightning bolt, and he could be holding mutagenic growth in hand, which does do the trick. But yeah, we'll see what happens here. And end of turn here, Jerrymel, I guess, is considering using that lightning helix he has in hand for on that Viridian Corruptor. But like I said, he's probably also considering Michael holding a mutagenic growth here, which why he's still not doing it. And Jerrymel still taking a while here, end of turn.
Yeah, maybe thinking if he should answer the threat this turn, or maybe play another spell to take care of it during his own turn.
Yeah, cause from what I see in his hand, he has two Simian Spirit Guys, an Anger of the God, and Lightning Helix, I think. So I guess he's considering doing something now, but I think he doesn't have a second land in his hand yet. So, because normally if you're just afraid of that Corruptor, then you could Lightning Helix now, and like you said, if Michael has mutagenic growth to protect it, then he can just cast Anger of the Gods his turn. But I think he's worried that he doesn't top deck a land. We're not sure because we don't really, because we did see. I mean, we can see most of the cards, but we're not sure that he really indeed doesn't have a second land.
Yep,
oh, but I think that's another Sacred Foundry in hand.
Okay, so Jerrymel just decides to fetch for a Sacred Foundry and decides to play it untapped. Tapped.
Yeah.
So both
And yeah,
players down to
that
19.
was a Sacred Foundry. I guess he just didn't feel the need to to use it that turn.
Right, so he uses the Simian Spirit Guide to gain an extra red mana and casts Anger of the Gods.
Yep, and unfortunately, Michael with no mutagenic row to protect it. I guess he really just didn't have any other infect creature in hand and figured that Noble Hierarch into Viridian Corruptor is good enough.
Yep, but here's an Inkmont Nexus still in the battlefield for him. He uses a fetch land.
And at this point, he would. I guess this is the time he's gonna get that breeding pool.
I guess. Yep, he does, and he's down to 16 with the fetch and shock land.
Yep, and at this point, he would either he's gonna be casting one of that blighted agent or a glistener elf, or just swinging in with the Inkmont Nexus. And
Yep,
he
so
does.
here we go. He activates the Inkmont Nexus.
Yep, and at this point, he doesn't really need to protect the Inkmont Nexus against anything on Jerrymel's turn because it does go back to a land. Well, of course, he doesn't know that Jerrymel has that Molten Rain in hand. So at this point, you just wanna swing with whatever pump spell you could cast at the moment.
Right, so he uses Might of Old Crossa to add 4 more power and toughness to the Inkmont Nexus. His opponent now at 5 poison counters, which is half of what he needs to deal to win the game.
Yep. For those who are not familiar with Infect, as Miguel said, you immediately lose the game once you have 10 points poison counter. So he's already halfway to it.
Right, Jerrymel goes down to 17 because from playing the Sacred Foundry untapped. And he does play the Molten Rain, which destroys target land and deals 2 damage to that land's controller.
Yeah, and Michael here just giving
So,
the card a once over just to make sure it does deal 2 damage, I guess.
yep, so no more threats on the board for Michael, and just passes the turn.
Yeah, so that's one of the problems of the Infect deck here. You normally mulligan for a creature or 2. In his case, I guess that was the Corruptor and Inkmont Nexus. But once if that your opponent is able to get rid of your first wave of creatures, you normally end up with nothing on the board. So I guess that's what's happening right now. He just passes the turn because he doesn't have anything to play.
Yeah, so here's Jerrymel. Wow, casting a Simian Spirit Guide.
Yep, and Jerrymel obviously knows that that's how the Infect game works, and he obviously doesn't have anything better to capitalize on that. And I mean, Michael is down to 14, so that Simian Spirit Guide is good enough if it doesn't. I mean, if it doesn't do anything for the next 2 to 3 turns. I mean, because Jerrymel is probably packing more burn spells in hand or in the deck. I mean, so I mean, a couple of swings, maybe 3 swings from that Simian Spirit Guide plus 1 or 2 burn spells could be enough.
Yeah, and he knows he has to close this game quickly because Michael finding another threat would not be too good for him because of potential pump spells and protection in his hand.
I mean, they are all. I mean, they are both with almost packed hands. So, I mean, at this point, if Michael draws something, he's still. I mean, it's still in danger of not surviving up to his turn. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so still no threat for Michael, and that's Simian Spirit Guide. Attacks for 2 damage again. Okay, still no threat for Michael. This is getting out of hand, I guess.
Yeah, at this point he is down to 8, so an attack from that spirit guide brings him down to 6. And I'm not sure if Jerrymel does have the cards in hand, but we saw one lightning helix, right? So if he already top deck another burn spell, then I mean he's bound to win the game.
Yep. So here's a. I think it is a blood. That's a blood moon.
Yeah, I guess that's just sealing the game, making sure Michael doesn't have anything that produces anything other than red
Yep.
and green.
And that's the game. Jerrymel takes game one. That's not a normal situation against an infect deck. Normally, in a match that involves infect, the infect player does snatch away game one.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, End Affinity, that's what they argue are the best game one decks, meaning you normally take game one, lose game two. I mean, not all the time, but you normally take game one. It's okay to lose game two because your opponent's gonna be packing in hate, but you normally take it on game three anyway. But this time with in fact losing game one, it's gonna be a bit harder for Michael here. But we'll see. Um, Anything on the sideboard that might be interesting, you think?
Okay, so looking at Michael's sideboard, uh, yeah, he may find great use in some counter spells like Dispel and Spell Pierce. And seeing that Blood Moon, I think he's also interested in some copies of Nature's Claim.
Yep. So the Infect game plan here changes just a little bit, because normally you want your creature and you want like a second turn. So the same thing you want to do is like you cast your Noble Hierarch turn one or nothing, and then turn two you cast your creature with something to protect it. In this case, though, I think he wants. I mean, that's okay, still okay, but something like a Spell Pierce would be better because it doesn't just protect your creature, but it can also protect your land if you need to counter Boom Bust, for example. But I mean, but yeah, it's the same basic game plan. Um, on the Nahiri deck side, though, I guess he just brings in more creature removal and burn spells.
Yeah. And I think Michael has mulligan down to 5.
Yeah, also not a good sign for an Infect player that's on the play. But I mean, this deck does win with less cards, so it is still possible. Oh, just a
Oh,
six though.
that's okay.
But I mean, the red white deck is already. I mean, something that's already packing Anger of the Gods main deck. I guess he has more, right? I mean,
Yeah,
more
that
burn
may
spells.
be a possibility. So okay, Michael is already satisfied with his 6 cards, so he chooses to keep it and he chooses to scry one.
Taking a while though if he's thing out done. I think that's bottom. I'm not really sure, but yeah.
Right, so that's a Wooded Foothills, fetching 4, a Breeding Pool. Okay, so he's down to 17.
I guess the scry doesn't really matter there, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Going back to game 1, if you remember, his turn 1 play was Wooded Foothills into Forest. Now it's a Wooded Foothills into a Breeding Pool. Any particular reason why he would do that?
I mean, the only reason I could see that he wanted to get the forest was, either he he was confident that the noble hierarch would survive, or he thought it would, and maybe didn't really need the blue mana at that time, or he scouted the deck and know that he's fighting a deck with a blood moon main deck. I mean, but still, if the game reaches a point where he's casting blood moon confidently, then I mean he's gonna win because he's not just gonna cast Blood Moon turn 3 with tapped out against an Infect deck, right? I mean, you cast Blood Moon when you're safe against an Infect, and if it reaches that situation, then having mana doesn't protect you anyway.
Yep. Good points there. Right, so Michael went with turn 1 Glistener's Elf into turn 2 Blighted Agent. So the Glistener Elf was answered quickly by a Lightning Bolt. And now this Blighted Agent, I think, will get in for 1 poison counter.
Not really sure what Michael had in hand there, but if he had a pump spell and something that could give protection, then he could have went for it there. But I guess he doesn't.
So I think Jerrymel had a Sacred Foundry and chose to play it untapped for his second turn. I think he was trying to represent like some answers maybe.
Yeah, I mean it could be Lightning Index. So the problem now is Jeremy here is casting Blood Moon, but and Michael just wants to draw a card. I guess he didn't play with answers to it, right?
Yep. So I think he's trying to find some ways to get around the Blood Moon for like for example some basics so that he can cast his pump spells and he can cast his creatures as well.
Yeah, and like I said, that might be the reason why he got that forest that time. But this time, though, he really needed to get a breeding pool because of the Blighted Agent.
Yeah. Right.
And
So all of his lands right now are mountains technically.
yep. To be more specific, they become non-basic mountains.
So here's a lightning bolt and yep, no more threats for Michael in his board here.
I mean, but that game could have went the other way as easily if he actually had Nature's Claim when Jerrymel cast that Blood Moon, he could have easily won that game because Jerrymel just went all out for it, tapped out. But I guess Jerrymel was okay with it because because he was up a game anyway. I mean, because that was a very risky play. It's just good. I mean, good for him that it paid off though.
Yeah, he also thinks maybe he would fall off quite far if he hadn't cast the Blood Moon that turn.
Well, one thing he could have done was just cast a burn spell on the Blighted Agent on his turn. Because what happens then is if Michael wants to keep it alive with a pump spell, then he uses up a pump spell
Uh-huh.
on Jerrymel's turn, which slows down the poison clock a bit. If he doesn't, then Jerrymel just survives for a couple of, not just a couple but a lot more turns. So that was an option just to be safe. But it that Blood Moon turn 3 was a gamble. It's just lucky for him that it paid off.
Yep. So I think there was a judge call clarifying the interaction between a plus activation of the Nahiri, the Harbinger, and Emrakul, Aeon's Thorn getting into the graveyard.
Yeah,
So,
basically what happened is they were asking if the shuffle in ability of the Emrakul resolves first, if it's because it's either a replacement ability wherein you shuffle it back in and then you draw a card, or something that uses the stack, which it does. It actually it's a triggered ability when it reaches the graveyard, which is why he drew a card first before shuffling.
yep. So the ability discard a card, then draw a card, actually happens like without any interruption.
But again, the Emerald trigger does use the stack, and of course, there's really no way for Infect to win, which is, I mean, with the Blood Moon, because even if you get a forest, what do you do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Jerrymel here, just using Bust, which is one of your Kidon effects, with Nahiri and Dark Goblin, Dark Dweller. So I mean, we have Blood Moon plus everything. Then I mean, this really closes out the game.
Yep. So
Another judge call here. They're just making, they're just checking what happens to, um, flagstones, I guess. Um, with Blood Moon up. For those not familiar, what Blood Moon does, it turns all of your non-basic lands into mountains. So what happens is they become non-basic mountains without any abilities. But I guess Michael just had enough, and even before they could conclude that, Judge Query just giving the hand anyway. Because I mean, there's really no way for him to get back in that game, even
yeah.
without the bust.
Even with basic, the best possible thing he could have done was just basic into an infect creature, which doesn't really fare well against a goblin dark dwellers. And
Yeah. Well, one thing that could have happened was he kept drawing forests. And he could have played an infect creature with protection, but yeah, that really didn't happen. But so there, um,
Jerrymel wins the match 2-0 against Michael.
yep. And I think we have time to catch one of our other matches, so we'll see you in that game.